Well, welcome back to Mr. Obsolete's Vintage Homesteading. Well, it's the middle of winter. In our last couple of videos we've been talking about light, different types of light, and kerosene lanterns and white gas lanterns and propane lanterns and stoves. So anyway, today's video is going to be about repairing and maintaining the gas lanterns. So we're going to be using Coleman's because they're the most widely used. The parts availability is still really good for them. They actually still make some of them, and show you what can go wrong with them and how to fix them. So we'll come over here and show you the different components. Okay, well, we're going to start at the bottom of the lamp. This is the fuel tank, or font as it's called. There isn't too much that goes wrong with them. The early ones, the tanks are made out of brass and later steel, but they put a sealer coat in them, but sometimes that breaks down, and if they sit and get condensation in them, they can actually get a little bit of rust in them. And so you just basically need to drain out any fuel, dry it out, put some evapor rust or some vinegar in it, and that'll eat the rust out of it. And then if you're using vinegar, you want to neutralize the acid, put in some hot water with some baking soda in it, and then dry it out thoroughly. Okay, to start with, one of the main problems are the fuel caps. The seal on these things get brittle over time and crack, and then they won't hold pressure when you pump them up. So this is the early style cap, this is the outer part, and this is the inner part, and that seal goes right around here, and then the screw holds it together. So what you do to replace this seal, you have to take a propane torch or something like that and burn it out, and then chisel it out and make sure it's clean in there, and then install the new seal. And that's the main problem on the lower part of the tank. Now here is a check valve, and what that relates to is the pump here that pressurizes the tank. So down inside the tank, this threads into a piece, and then this shaft here goes down in there, and there's a pointed end on it, and when it's down all the way, it seals it and plugs it off. So what you do when you want to put pressure in a tank, you use this, which fits over this and goes down inside of here like this. And so when you push the air into the valve, it goes through it, and then the check valve keeps it from coming back out. So the next problem is the pumps. The early ones like this is a leather seal, and the later ones, which I'll show you in a bit, is made out of neoprene. Now when these things aren't used for a real long time, these dry out, and sometimes you have to replace them, but most of the time you can save them. Okay, like I say, these leather seals here can dry out and they won't seal properly, and so what I use to begin with to soften them up is carburetor and choke cleaner here, Berryman's B12 Chem Tool. This is the best stuff out there by far. So I'll spray and fill up this little cup here. It's a cap off of one of these, and I'll put it in there and I'll soak it for overnight, and then I'll let it dry out the next day, and then I'll oil it. Now there's a lot of different types of oil you can use on these. Originally Coleman used neat's foot oil, but I don't have any sources for it around here, and so this is something I've used on them for a long time. It's a 3-in-1 oil. And I don't recommend using motor oil, because the motor oil they sell today coagulates as it sits over time. But here's the best stuff right here, ballistol, and it'll treat the leather here and just make it as supple as can be. And just there again, I soak that overnight in that. And then before you put it in, you want to kind of spread it out there a little bit and work it in. And the next area where we can have a problem is in the pickup tube and valve here. So this is your pickup tube here. and the fuel comes in through there, and the control knob goes right in this area, and this controls your generator tip cleaner. You won't be able to see it probably, but right here there's a little piece of metal that comes up and has a hole in it, and that operates the rod in the generator. So the generator is this tube here. This is where the raw fuel comes in. On the very tip of it here, there's a little tiny jet which is removable, and inside of it there's a spring like this. This has two springs in it. Some of them have an asbestos liner. And then this piece here, on the end of it, there's a little teeny wire that cleans the hole in that jet. And then on the opposite end here, goes on, when this is in the up position, the end of this goes in here like that. And then when you turn this, moves up and down, and that cleans the jet. So when these, there again, B12 Chem Tool is a great thing to clean this with. And these, if you get carbon on it, like there's a little bit right here, just can use a little wire brush, gently clean it. And so we got the fuel cap, and the pickup assembly, the generator, and the pump. So those are the main components. So the next piece here is the part that goes on top here. This is just the upper frame basically. And then this will be underneath it and goes down inside the tank like that. And then the generator control will go out to the side. And when you have this on here, these tubes here, that lets the air in, and right here you have the burner. And so when you have pressure in the fuel tank and fuel, and you open the valve, it comes up through the generator, which will be installed right through here, like that. It sprays the air, or I should say it sprays the fuel in here as a mist, and mixes with the air. And then you have your mantle right here, and I'll show you a little trick on the mantle here real quick. I'll be right back. Okay, well, here's some mantles. Now this particular lantern here is a kerosene lantern, so it uses a much bigger burner here, right here, and this is also a lot bigger, and this is a standard size here. So this is 250 candle power. This is 500 candle power. So these mantles, you can see they got a couple little strings right here. So what I do is I put my finger here and pull the strings out to kind of make this thing round a little more. And then they go on here. Like that, and then these strings, you tighten them up, which I won't do real much at this time because I'm going to clean this. But once you tie that down and have your second tie to tighten it up totally, you want to come back and cut the strings off, because if they're down like this and you burn it in, they can actually poke a hole, so you have a blowhole in it. So it's important to do that before you burn them in. So anyway, there's the basics of these things and what to do. And so it's important, like I say, to keep these things clean. You can see a little bit of carbon on here. You just polish that off with some real light sandpaper, and it's got stuff on the outside, but just polish it up for looks. But the other type of gas cap here that they use also, the later ones use a one-piece cap, like on this lantern here. And the gaskets are different, they're wider. And like on this one, which is brass, you can burn them out and then get the pieces out. But If you have the ones that are painted, then of course you don't want to do that, so you just have to take a really tiny sharp screwdriver and take a little X-Acto knife and cut a slot on it and then start working it out. And they're hard to get in, so there again you can use a little blunt tool and put some silicone spray or something on them and push them in. But I actually have a little tube, this piece of plastic tubing, and the opening is just slightly bigger on the inside than the center section of this, and so I can just put it down and put the tube on it and give it a little whack with a hammer and it goes right in. So just a little quick tip there. And then there isn't too much else to these, and so the only other basic parts we have, we've got the glass, and we've got the vent, and the nut that holds it together, and the carry handle. Okay, well here's a late style lantern. This is called the dual fuel. This is actually still being made by Coleman. They're about 120 bucks. But the difference between the older ones here and this one are mainly the pump here. And just twist this and then pull this out. It's basically the same. The problem with these is that when they sit for a long time, this pump disc here, which is made of neoprene, gets brittle, and then they won't pump. So the thing you can do is, of course, buy a new assembly and put it in. But there again, I'll use some B12 chem tool, soak it here overnight like that, and then there again dry it off thoroughly, and then I'll soak it in ballistol again. Ballistol is a really interesting stuff. It works really good on leather for restoration, like on the pumps. And on neoprene like this, it'll actually soften it up again. It's non-toxic. It's been around since the teens. It's really great stuff. But anyway, so you can see, like right now, it's really not even hardly working. So I'll just soak it overnight and put it together, and it'll be as good as new. So there you go. So here's our lanterns, old and new. Now the one thing I'll mention on these, it says dual fuel, which means you can burn gasoline, like automotive gasoline in them, which works fine, but it can give off toxic fumes from all the additives in it, so you only want to use this outdoors. If you're using the Coleman fuel or white gas, you can use it indoors just like these. So like I say, the white gas with no additives really has virtually almost no bad stuff coming out of them. And with these with the automotive gas in them, it's not good for you. Well, there you are, how to repair, service and maintain your white gas lanterns. So vintage is best. They're actually a lot better made than the newer ones, but these are still pretty good. So anyway, starting to snow. Gotta go. See you in 2 weeks.